Hey everybody, welcome to episode 200 of Average Guy Opinions. I'm your average guy, John Corelli. I have a little prop behind me today. Um, it might be hard for you guys to see it. It's a t-shirt for Lakeside Amusement Park. Um, Logan just started working there this week, and so that's kind of cool. Proud of him, and he's going to be in food service, which wasn't his first choice, but hey, what can you do? That's the way jobs are. So 16, he's finally gotten his first job. I shouldn't say finally. I started when I was 14, but they were very minimal jobs. So I'm just glad he's into it. I'm glad he wanted to work there. I figured, hey, maybe a good way to celebrate the 200th episode of Average Guy Opinions is to let's talk about something fun like amusement parks. Lakeside has a special place in my heart, not only because it's employing my kid, but it has just not changed very much at all. For those of you from that are familiar with the Denver area, especially West Denver, or that went to Jefferson High School like I did, most of you know very well Lakeside Amusement Park. Hasn't changed much. It's the raceway is all dilapidated though. When I was a kid, I lived only a block away. I lived at 43rd and Eaton, and Lakeside is basically at 44th and Sheridan, so could hear people on the rides screaming. On Sunday nights, they had races. They had um, basically like mini NASCAR, almost like dune buggy looking cars on their short track there. And there was actually a couple of guys also named Corelli, Rick and Don Corelli, who did very well at Lakeside. And Rick Corelli actually went into NASCAR for a few years. I want to say back in the 80s and 90s. I think he did okay. I don't know if he won any races, but I think he was well enough to compete, or good enough to compete, I should say. And so that was kind of cool. But every Sunday night, that was super loud during the summer, just hearing the raceway. And the raceway is still there, but it's mostly demolished. It's dilapidated, really. No, it wasn't wrecked intentionally. It's just, I don't think it's been used in a good 20 or 30 years. And Lakeside has put a lot of storage back in there, and it's weird. When you're traveling down 44th right by it, you can see it's open. It's completely, nature has had at it for like 30 years, so it's just completely dilapidated. So, and that's kind of Lakeside. Lakeside has been around for over 100 years. And amusement parks were a different ball game. I don't even know if they were called amusement parks when they originally opened. They probably were, but it wasn't so much about rides. When Lakeside originally opened, it was about the gardens that were there, and there was a little lake. They named it Lake Rhoda after one of the ladies, I think, that inherited the park later on. The lake is still there. There's a little train that goes around the lake. It still works. And so there were things like that. I imagine people, and I've seen the pictures. I don't even have to imagine it, really. I've seen the pictures of people, in their top hats and their corsets, and all gussied up in the early 1900s to go visit Lakeside Amusement Park, and it was beautiful. And sorry, I think my phone might. I don't know why my phone's doing that. That's really annoying. It's okay. Well, whatever. It's not. Is it windy enough for it to be blowing the phone? Okay, I guess that's better. I apologize for that. That was really weird. Hopefully, it didn't make you seasick. Like a nice ride in a little paddle boat on Lake Rhoda might. Ooh, I'm so clever. So that was the close amusement park to me when I was growing up. Elitch Gardens was also, and of course called Gardens because of the same theme, was also very close to me. Elitch Gardens was probably about a half a mile away from me, maybe a mile, and we would walk there a lot because Elitch's was the nicer one. Elitch's was over at 38th and Tennyson, and had more. It was just a nicer kept place. It was more popular. But Lakeside was pretty decent back then, the 70s and 80s, and they kind of had a friendly competition. People often went to both of them. Sometimes in the same day, you might hit both of those amusement parks when you were a kid, and it was a pretty cool place to go. Elitch Gardens, I believe, was around. Founded around the same time, like the 1920s or something like that, and the gardens were a little more renowned than Lakeside's were, and eventually Elitch's just did more with the space they had. They had two roller coasters, whereas Lakeside only had one. Although Lakeside had the Wild Chipmunk, which might be a reason I still have neck problems to this day. The Wild Chipmunk would just it's crazy, like a little mini roller coaster with super sharp turns, and would just, ooh, it makes my back hurt just to think about it. But it was a friendly competition, and we both. I mean, you could talk to anyone that went to Jefferson or Wheat Ridge High, and even North High. Probably all those kids just used to gather at those places and have a lot of fun. Like I said, both were walking distance for me, so that was cool. Lakeside has, like I said, not only has the racetrack dilapidated, the park itself is, I wouldn't say it's in disrepair, but it hasn't been taken care of to the extent it probably should have. The rides. The rides that are still functioning are in pretty good shape, and they have something that the new Elitch's doesn't have, which is trees. So that's kind of nice. When you go to Lakeside, there's actual shade there. For those of you that don't know, Elitch's moved from nearby, like West Denver, to downtown in the mid '90s, late '90s, and then got subsequently was bought by Six Flags, and I've never been to the new Elitch's. So once mid '90s, I was in we had moved to Cleveland. By the time I came back and could even really care about Elitch's, I was well into my 30s and not really into amusement parks. Dante didn't care to go. We actually went to Santa's Workshop a lot. For those of you that don't know that one, that's built into the mountain that shares Pikes Peak. I mean, it is. It's built into Pikes Peak. It has the highest elevated Ferris wheel on the planet. Like it's 7,000, 8,000, 12,000 feet. I don't know what it is, but it's way up there. And that thing is weird. I mean, because you're in the side of the mountain and you're on this Ferris wheel. It's just like any time you just pitch you off all the way to Highway 24. But it's a great place. It's not very expensive. It's nice and cool usually up there because you're kind of in the mountains. And we used to take the kids there a lot. Dylan and I took Dante and Logan there a lot because we didn't want to deal with the lines like you have to at Elitch's. Lakeside was even worse shape than it is now. Back then, it wasn't doing very well. So it was just nice to travel down to Colorado Springs and check out Santa's Workshop. And it's so hokey and great, and they have the same old employees that have always worked there. They have kids coming in too, but there are guys like in their 60s working there. It's pretty cool. Have like a magic show, puppet show, all kinds of little odds and ends. I think it's been there since the 40s or the 50s. It's been there a long time, and it's just a great place to go. But yeah, back to Elitch's. That's part of the problem. I mean, they went corporate, they went for the money, and unfortunately, it lost all its charm. Like I said, there are no trees there. At least when I drive by, I don't see one tree. I guess if they would have planted them 25 years ago when they first got there, that would have been nice, and they'd have maybe some decent places for shade. But I hear just horror stories of people not being able to find shade there. And I've even heard lately that packs of kids will just get into fights there, like tweens and teenagers are getting into fights at Elitch's, and Elitch's is supposed to be the nice one. It's got all the money behind it. It's downtown. It's really nice. The rides are amazing, but it's funny because Lakeside keeps hanging in there, and that's probably why I like Lakeside now, because it's the underdog, right? It's always been privately owned by kind of this crazy family that runs the entire town. Lakeside's not only an amusement park; it's a small town. Just like Mountain View is. I've mentioned Mountain View before. Mountain View is where I grew up, a 6x2 block town that's wedged in between Wheat Ridge and Denver. It's right on the corner. It's basically the corner of 44th and Sheridan. It extends out a little bit each way. And Lakeside is right across on the north side of 44th from that. About the same probably amount of space. I think Lakeside goes from like Sheridan to Harlan, and then maybe from 44th to the highway, which is kind of parallel. I-70 is basically 48th Avenue there. So it's like an 8x4 block town, slightly bigger than Mountain View, but half of it's lake, half of it's Lake Rhoda, and then the other half is Lakeside Mall, which isn't really a mall anymore. I mean, it's more of I guess it's a strip mall. So I don't think it's an indoor mall anymore. And then you got the amusement park. That's it. That's what takes up that entire space. And that they have a police force. I think it's like one car, just like Mountain View used to be. And I think the people that own the amusement park also pretty much run the town. I think one of the relatives is the mayor. There's very few people that actually live there. There are a few houses along Sheridan, and I think there might be an apartment complex in there somewhere, but it's very, very low population place because all the space is taken up by the amusement park, the lake, and the mall. Wonderful places I used to hang out. It's making me happy that my 16-year-old is going to be part of that community, and it's also going to be a very interesting place for him to work. It's almost all boys, he said, at the orientation, and it's almost all Latino kids, which is not surprising because West Denver is still highly Latino, even though they've dealt with gentrification in the last few years. But so I'm looking forward to see how the rest of the summer goes for my kid at Lakeside. And if any of you guys want to put commentary in the comments, I'd love to hear your experiences at Elitch's Lakeside, or even Santa's Workshop, or even Legoland, or wherever. All right, thanks guys. Happy 200th. I'll keep them coming. Bye.